Aloha, it's Robert at Blue Planet Surf Shop. I'm going to show you today some of the features and construction options and size options of the Carver Foilboards. Stand-up paddle foil boards for stand-up paddling, downwinding, wind sports, and so on. So let's go inside the shop. I'll show you the different sizes available, the features, and so on. Follow me. The Carver Foilboards are 2020 models. We just got a small shipment of them in. The Carver Foilboards we designed as kind of our more advanced series of foil boards. So if you're a beginner, we still recommend using one of our easy foiler boards. It's just going to make it much easier to get into the sport. They're great for entry-level foiling, makes it easier to catch the wave and get up on the foil and so on. But if you have some experience, you're a little bit better, you know how to engage the foil to catch the wave and so on, and you want something smaller and more high performance, the Carver Foilboards are a great option. Basically what we did was reduce the overall size of the board and still kind of keep the volume relatively high. So if you look at them from the side, you'll notice they have a lot of volume, especially in the back here, under your back foot. So that way, when you're catching the wave, you're able to keep your weight right on top of the foil as you're catching the wave. Basically, the idea when you're foiling is to minimize the size of the board and basically reduce the amount of board that you need to maneuver around when you're using the foil. Think of it as the board just being a delivery device to get you onto the foil. So the board is not touching the water when you're surfing, so it doesn't matter how the performance on the wave is because the foil is what you're surfing. This is just a platform for your feet. So once you're up on the foil, you want to have as little board in the way as possible. But to catch the wave and to paddle back out, you do need to have enough volume, especially on a stand-up paddleboard, to stand up on it and balance on it. Having the foil underneath makes it more stable for sure, so you can use a much smaller board. Once you're a little bit better and get used to it, you can use a much smaller board than on a regular stand-up paddleboard. So this sounds kind of crazy to use a 5.2 by 26.5 by 94 liters. It's really a tiny board, but if you have some experience foiling, it's actually easier than you would think to use a board like this. Pay attention to the volume. Obviously, the volume is what should be similar to what you can ride on a regular stand-up surfboard that you're comfortable on. So, but otherwise, the foil does add stability when you're in the water. So it is a little bit easier to use a board with a foil on it than it is on a regular stand-up paddleboard. So the volume distribution is kind of interesting on the Carver Foilboards. We have a lot of volume right here in the tail. So that helps you, basically when you're catching the wave, you can position your feet exactly over the foil, on top of the foil. So having your weight right over the middle helps you to kind of catch the wave and pump up on the foil easier. Also having this beveled or chisel tail, we call it, helps with allowing you to kind of pump the board while you're still touching the water, and that engages the foil quicker and allows you to lift up sooner. And so this kind of having that helps you kind of pump up on the foil a little bit easier also when you're doing downwinders. And then obviously when you're coming low to the water, this gives you more clearance so you can kind of get the foil up, and when you're pumping up and down, less likely for your tail to touch the water. That said, for a lot of beginners, a board like the Easy Foiler with a flat bottom will help you kind of generate a little bit more speed on the wave when you're taking off, and so the board itself generates more speed, and then you can kind of push off that tail a little bit easier to lift up. So versus this one, you really have to engage the foil and use the lift of the foil to come up off the wave. So these are the three different models we have available for the Carver Foilboards, and probably the first number you should look at is the volume. So 94 liters, 114 liters, and 142 liters. So depending on the rider weight and obviously your skill level too, but I'm assuming that you're already in a little bit advanced foiler. As a beginner, we don't recommend these boards, but if you know what you're doing and you want something more high performance, kind of base it on the volume that you need to be comfortably float on the board. And I know it's kind of a big range, but I would recommend taking your body weight and adding at least 10 or 15, 20% to it. That should be a comfortable volume to paddle on. But in terms of the lengths, we got the 5.2, the 5.8, and the 6.2. I weigh about 195 pounds. I like using the 5.8. The 114 liter volume is plenty of volume for me. But that said, on a windy day with choppy water, it is a handful to control this board. I mean, it is definitely a small board. It took me some adjustment to get used to it. Definitely not as easy to control as the Easy Foiler when you're paddling. But once you're up on the foil, on the board, it flies really nice. And also I find that it's easier to kind of pump up the board, and I like using these for downwinders as well. I actually have a 6.2 that I use for downwinders, and that it just allows me to kind of pump up a little bit easier because of that chisel tail. So let's go over some of the features. All our foil boards have inserts, so we have 2 rows of inserts in the front. This allows you to put a foot strap on kind of a little slightly diagonally, this way or that way, depending if you're goofy or regular foot. I like having it at a slight angle so you can get your foot in easier. You usually don't have your foot at a 90-degree angle, you have it slightly pointing forward. The back, for the back foot straps, we also have inserts that you can offset a little bit, which allows you to get your arch right over the center of the board where the arch bar is, and that's a really good indicator to know where to place your back foot. It's right over the mast, so the screw holes for the tuttle box, if you're using a tuttle, are right in the middle here of the arch bar. And then behind that we have a tail kicker, so you kind of know if you're moving your foot too far back, it keeps you from like breaching on takeoff. Because if you put your foot way too far back behind the mast, it never ends well. So we also have our patented Subgroup Panel, which makes it super easy to lift the board, carry it all directions, keeps it from slipping out of your hands. We have a pretty long deck pad, so it allows you to get your weight way forward if you need to keep your weight on the foil in the front on takeoff or something like that. We also have 2 leash plugs in the back, so this is good in a little bit bigger surf. Okay, so let's look at the bottom. So if you're getting a brand new board that has this warranty and warning card on there, just says to be careful in heat, don't leave your board out in super high heat conditions. It also has a little baggie inside. This one has screws for your foot strap inserts, so if you want to attach foot straps to your board, use these screws. And then we have the Foil Strongbox. This is our patent pending Foil Strongbox design. Basically has a solid carbon fiber plate on the bottom that connects the tuttle and the 2 plate mount boxes all into one carbon unit that's high density foam reinforced and has a carbon stringer down the middle that connects to the stringer inside the board. So this is like the strongest way to install boxes into a board, because basically the boxes are connected with the tuttle box and everything's connected to the stringer and to the deck. So it's much stronger than just putting in a piece of high density foam and then installing 2 boxes into it, because that way everything's connected to the deck, so there's no flexing and it doesn't put a lot of stress on the bottom layer glass of the board. It basically spreads out the load from the bottom to the top. So having that I-beam strength and the connected stringer and the extra carbon reinforcement on the deck gives you a really nice stiff connection between the foil and your feet. So when you're pumping or pushing up and down with your front foot, it directly translates that energy from your feet down the mast into the foil. So you don't get any flexing, you don't get any material fatigue or cracking from the connection not being very strong. So we found this is really, really important, that you have a solid box that's basically connects your feet to the foil. That's why we designed this system and have a patent pending for it. Okay, so some of the design features we have, on top of the plate, it's a flat bottom. It's flattened out, so when you mount the plate, you don't want a V or something like that. You want just a flat surface to mount your plate to. And then that flat panel kind of carries forward. We have 2 little concaves on the sides here, and then the beveled rails. So having these concaves here create extra lift and also directional stability. So when you're paddling or catching a wave, even though these boards are super short, it still has pretty good directional stability, so you're not just yawing all over the place. You can make the board accelerate and go in a straight line and catch the wave. Having these tucked under beveled rails helps with keeping the board touching the water if you're kind of touching down or touching it in a turn. It also has like a softer entry. If you look at the nose of the board, it's kind of rounded off. This rounded off nose kind of is forgiving when you touch down on the water, and it helps you kind of recover more easily. It's a soft entry instead of having like a hard stop like you have from a concave, or it's easier to control than having sharp rails in the front. So we found having this rounded nose really helps kind of boof through the chop. Also, when you're paddling, it's a nice nose to have. It's kind of a little bit based on race board noses, you know. And then this tail, I call it the chisel tail. It's kind of angled off, and so it has a hard line here that helps with releasing the water, basically making the bottom surface area smaller. So once you get up to speed, it kind of lifts off the water surface easier, doesn't stick to the water. What I find really helpful about this shape too is that you're able to kind of bounce on the water surface, like in a downwinder, for example, where you're trying to lift off, get on the foil. It allows you kind of to pump the board a little bit while you're still on the water, and then that allows you to engage the foil and then lift off. Also, you know, obviously when you're coming down close to the water surface and you're kind of pumping up and down, it keeps the tail from slapping on the water, and every time the board touches the water, obviously it creates a lot of extra drag that slows you down. So when you're pumping, for example, or you're surfing tight against the face of the wave, you don't want your board touching. You want just the foil to be in the water, and that's the most smooth and efficient way to foil, basically, to have the board not ever touch the water if you can. I'm going to go over the two construction options now. So we got the carbon fiber construction, full carbon, and then we have the bamboo epoxy. And this one is a composite. This one is full carbon. Basically, we have the same reinforcements on this as on the bamboo, but it has a strip of carbon running along the center between the feet. It also has an extra patch of carbon underneath the standing area where you're standing, and then it has extra carbon patches underneath the Foil Strongbox. So all the key areas have extra reinforcements. Also, the rails have a band of Kevlar running along the rails, nose and tail. So the full carbon construction is a little bit lighter than the bamboo. What we find is that it's also more high performance because it's more rigid and has a better more direct transfer of energy between your feet and your foil. So this is our bamboo composite construction. This is a great choice for most users. It's a very strong construction. It has a bamboo sandwich, so top and bottom we got a layer of bamboo veneer sandwiched between layers of glass. So, and then it has extra reinforcement, carbon reinforcements over the Foil Strongbox. So our bamboo construction also has the Kevlar Rails, which is basically a band of Kevlar running all the way along the rails, across the nose and the tail. So Kevlar is a really tough material. You might know that it's used in bulletproof vests, and it's very resilient, so it helps prevent damage up to the rails from hitting it with the paddle or dropping it on the ground and so on. So having the Kevlar rails is a really nice feature. Both our bamboo and our carbon boards have the Kevlar rails. We also have an extra reinforcement with carbon fiber on the deck area. So this whole area is covered with carbon fiber where your front foot is, where you're standing when you're paddling and so on. So this has extra reinforcement so you don't get those deep foot wells you get on some boards. The back foot also has a carbon patch over the Foil Strongbox, and then the inserts have extra reinforcements as well. So we really try to make these boards bomber. So the strength to weight ratio is really important. You know, you do need a board that has reinforcements in the right places. You know, from experience, we've found where we need to make the board stronger, where we can save weight. So if you just go with the lightest board possible, obviously you're gonna have some compromises with less material in some areas. So you might, you know, if you go with a board that's super light, it might be nice to use at first, but after a few months you might regret having a board that's not reinforced properly in those important areas. Basically all Blue Planet products come with that 1-year warranty on any manufacturing defects. So these are the 3 brand new boards we have available, the Carver Foilboards. It's a great choice if you have some experience foiling, you want something more high performance. They're great for stand-up foil surfing, downwind foiling, and also if you have a wing They're great for wing foiling with those hand wings. Great option for someone that wants more performance. So for details, specs, and so on, check our website. We'll have a link down below. If you have any questions, just give our shop a call. I'll have the number on the screen. We do offer free shipping in the US, so we'll air cargo ship it to the nearest major airport. All our foil boards also come with a really cool custom fit board bag. So the board bag is designed so you can leave the foil on the board, so you can have the board in the board bag while the foil is still attached to it, which is nice if you have like a pickup truck or a van. You want to protect the board, but you want to leave the foil attached to the board. So if you enjoyed the video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe down below. We'll see you on the water. Aloha.